I'm Al Williams. All this talk about ChatGPT has got me thinking about the original chat program, which is Eliza. And Eliza is a very old program. I mean, probably the late 70s, if not earlier, written in BASIC of all things. And it's made to be a psychoanalyst. So you can see it says, "Hi, I'm Eliza. What's your problem?" And you could just type in whatever you wanted as long as it was uppercase. This particular version of Eliza is running on an Altair 8800 replica, and the beautiful screen is courtesy of Cool Retro Term. I do have a real CRT monitor, but I didn't feel like lugging the 250-pound beast up the stairs to make this video. I think I'll say I feel inferior to GPT on the computer. Now, you can imagine the Altair not particularly speedy, so it's going to take a while to think about it. And it says, "Tell me more about such feelings." Now, I'm going to say, well, computers seem to be ruining everything. That's what the press will tell you anyway. And obviously, it's just looking for certain keywords, and if it finds them, it's spitting out different things. You can see some of them up at the top of the screen. And obviously, if it can't find anything, it just picks at random some platitudes. So here it says, "Do computers worry you?" So it knows we're talking about computers. And I say, yes, it would seem so. It also will remember certain things. Like that's a particular case where it probably just matched computer and said, "Do computers worry you?" But sometimes you could say, like, "I'm feeling depressed," and it'll say, "Well, is it because you're feeling depressed that you ... And it remembers that you said that, right? It'll plug it back in, and that helps with the illusion that it really understands. So you can see I'm pretty much in generic platitude land here. "Are you sure?" it says. So I'll bring up my mother. That's always a good flag for a psychiatrist, right? And, this wasn't the only program of its kind. There was another famous one named Perry that acted like a paranoid person. And I guess actually they probably thought they would hook up Perry to Eliza and Eliza would psychoanalyze Perry, but, really not, because there's really not a lot going on here. I'll bring up my neurotic dog. So I do have a neurotic dog. He's a great dog, but he's certainly neurotic. So, Perry was one of the other experiments in trying to model human behavior on the computer back around in the late 60s, early 70s to the late 70s. There was another one that I can't find much on, but I have a very clear recollection of playing with it. It was on the UNIVAC 1100 called George, and it was very similar to what the ChatGPT programs are doing today, where it will scan a bunch of input and say, "Oh, I think the next word, if I say I think the next word's probably dog, so I'll say that." And so when you started out with it blank, you would say like, "Hello, George," and it would just say, "Hello, George," and you'd say, "How are you?" And it would say, "Hello, George, you are how," and just random picks essentially. But if you fed tons of data in it, which was hard to come about in those days, not like now where you just go out on the internet and find giant text, it would actually start making pretty good sense. And there were some pre-programmed databases, if you will. One of them I remember quite clearly had a lot of information about Star Trek, and it could hold a pretty reasonable Star Trek conversation with you. It wasn't perfect, obviously. It was all statistics, just like ChatGPT. See, there it goes. But you are not sure you, the dog, is the main problem. I'm not sure where it thinks that it picked up something I said, but it didn't really permute it correctly. I'm not 100% sure why that is. So this is all written in BASIC, and it's not even particularly complicated BASIC. I'll show you the code here in a second. But, if you are really young and you haven't seen BASIC, it was a very simple interpreted language that was made to be easy to use compared to all the other languages that were available in those days. So very straightforward, nothing, really exotic, no regular expressions and pattern matching and neural networks. And, I guess you could have coded that in there if you'd have known it in those days. But here you go. That must be why I'm sad. And it says, "Did you come to me because you are sad?" And so it repeated what I said back to it, and or back to me rather. Isn't that why everyone comes to you? And it's it's interesting that just a relatively small number of lines of very simple programming can do at least a reasonably credible job. And a lot of people really thought this was, the next thing, and it would just get better and better, which I guess it has, but not really in an evolutionary kind of way. So it was kind of hard to see as it scrolls through the screen, but you can see here there's a bunch of stuff. Do you impose on your friends? Do computers worry you? Do you think machines have to do with your problem? And so it's got a couple of different things for each um, thing that it figures out you've said. So if you say like something about your mother, it might say, "Tell me more about your family." Or, like you saw, if you say, "I'm depressed" or "sad," it might say, "Well, is it because of this that you're sad or depressed?" So it doesn't really understand anything. It's just purely pulling data that out of your text, matching it up with data it knows about, and then spitting out things and maybe doing a little bit of substitute and replace. Anyway, it's kind of fun. I just, all this talk about talking to your computer in natural language with ChatGPT and Bard and all the other ones, it just made me want to kind of take a look back at Eliza, and I thought you might like to take a look back with me. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.